Hi folks, Shaz here, and I'm going to have another go at a little YouTube video. Today I had some of the new oxides arrive. I'm not buying every colour in the oxides, I'm just grabbing the ones that appeal to me. And the ones that appeal to me mainly are the brighter ones, because the thing that I really like about the oxides, and let's pick a colour that's going to really stand out, Salty Ocean I think, is what happens when you stamp with them on black. Now this is just a standard distress ink stamped on black, and as you can see you really have little more than a sort of watermark effect to it. But when you use the oxide, you can see how much more it coats the stamp, and when you stamp with that one, what you get is the stamped image in the colour that you've stamped in, and that will stay like that even when it dries. I'll show that at the end of the video, I'll remember that one, but it will stay like that even when it dries. Now you can sponge with them exactly the same as you would onto white cardstock, but you won't get the same intensity of colour that you would on white. So let's just change that to a clean one. It's a Salty Ocean distress ink. I'm not even going to bother sponging that on there because you won't see it at all. And the Salty Ocean oxide. Now you can see the colour, no argument about that, but it isn't as vibrant as it's going to be on white. And the oxide and the actual ink do give you two completely different shades, and that holds true through all of them. So let's try Mowed Lawn, shall we? Some Mowed Lawn distress ink. And some Mowed Lawn oxide. As you can see, you've got a darker, deeper colour with the oxide than you have with the original distress ink. Some of them are much more clear. Just looking at the pad you can see how different those are. And if we put the distress ink on first, then the oxide, again you can see it's much darker than the distress ink, much more solid cover. So that's what you can do with those. We'll push those to one side for a moment because I'm going to show you a little experiment how you can switch up your heat embossing a little. I've got a gold ink pad got clear embossing pad, got gold detail powder and clear detail powder. Now these Encore pads I've had for minimum 10 years, and apart from being re-inked a couple of times, they're still going strong. First one we're going to do is gold ink, and you do have to use a lighter hand with a pigment ink pad, because typically they are foam based, which means they're soft and they're squishy, and if you press your stamp down on it, you're going to get a lot of ink going into the detail of your stamp. So first one is gold Encore pigment ink, and we're going to cover that one with gold detail powder. Next one we're going to do is gold detail ink again. This time we're going to cover this one with clear detail powder. And finally, I need to clean my stamp for this. It can be much harder to get pigment inks off a rubber stamp rather than a silicone one. For some reason the silicone ones clean up much better. We're going to use a clear embossing ink. This is exactly the same as any clear embossing ink pad or perfect medium pad or Versamark pad. They're all embossing inks. So we're going to stamp this one here, which is in the clear powder, clear ink, and we're going to sprinkle it with gold powder. So let's get this out of the way and then I'll heat set that. Right, and here we have our images. In the top left, we have gold powder with gold ink. On the right, we have gold ink with clear embossing powder, and at the bottom, we have a clear embossing ink of some sort and gold powder. And you can see you do get three completely different colours depending which one you choose to go, and that will hold true with any embossing that you do in colours. If you use coloured embossing powder with clear, it will come out paler. If you use it with a toning coloured ink pad, then you will get a stronger colour. So that's one way you can switch things around a little bit and make your ink pads go further. And talking of making your ink pads go further, the general rule I know is dye ink pads are for stamping, not for embossing. But you can, sometimes you can do it anyway if your ink pad is wet enough. For instance, the distress inks, they're quite a wet ink, so you've got a good chance of it working with them, and your cardstock has quite a bearing on it as well. If it's got a sort of coating to it, then you've got a better chance of it working. Some cardstocks will just literally suck the ink straight off the stamp and it soaks into the cardstock, and that's it, game over. But if you want to turn a coloured ink into a stamping ink, it's really not difficult. And by that I actually meant a coloured ink, coloured dye ink into an pigment embossing ink. Take your clear embossing pad, whether it's just an embossing pad, whether it's a Versamark pad, perfect medium pad, they're all embossing inks, they'll all do the same thing. Cover your stamp in embossing ink, then tap your colour on top. A little bit of the embossing ink going onto your die pad won't hurt it at all. And stamp, and then you can heat emboss, because the embossing ink has kept it wet long enough for it to grab your embossing powder. And as you can see, we've got a nice clear, properly embossed image just with using a die ink pad and an embossing pad of some sort. So I know most people go for Versamark as an embossing ink, which is fine, that's exactly what it is, but there are quite a few out there as well that will do exactly the same job, so that's fine. Now, my next bit on ink pads is good old VersaFine. Now, I never thought I would find an improvement on the VersaFine Onyx Black, but I have to say the new VersaFine Clairs, and Nocturne is the name of the black, are absolutely amazing. They really are. Right, before I stamp that, I'm going to clean my stamp. Now, my stamp cleaner is baby bath, water and a few drops of glycerin to help condition your stamps. So really cheap, really easy. My stamp scrubby is from Poundland, so obviously cost me £1, and it's a paint pad, and you can spray your stamp cleaner on your stamp, give it a scrub at one end to clean it up, give it a scrub at the other end to dry it off, and you have a really nice clean stamp. Works brilliantly. I mean, you don't even have to use two ends of the same paint pad for £1 a piece. You can buy two, have one for cleaning and one for drying, but it's really good because the little sort of bristles in it get right into the detail of your stamps. So for those stamps that are difficult to clean, the ones with a lot of fine detail, it's absolutely brilliant, and a lot cheaper than spending out money on a stamp scrubby or something. So there you go. Right, VersaFine. Now this is your original VersaFine Onyx Black. Stamp there. Now the old VersaFine pads had an attached lid and this little fabric cover. The new ones, the lid separates, there's no fabric cover. What there is when they close down is a gap all the way round. So I would say be extra careful and make absolutely sure that you've pressed that lid on tight, because you're not really going to see if it's not on fully, and then you're going to have your ink pad drying out. And again, and you can see literally from the get-go that the Clair is a really nice, solid, strong black, and it works fantastically well on clear stamps and on silhouette stamps where you've got a big solid area, which often can provide you with all sorts of problems when it comes to stamping. Both VersaFines are embossable. I've always been able to emboss with the old one. The new one is no different, and I have seen videos done where they've been left for 10 or 15 minutes, the new VersaFine Clairs, before the powder's added, and they still emboss absolutely fine, but it won't smudge during that time. So it's sort of semi-dry, but it's still damp enough to take the embossing ink. And there you have the two VersaFines side by side. The Clair on the right, the original VersaFine Onyx Black on the left. The only pad that I've been less than happy with for colour, because most of them stamp out pretty close to the colours on the lid. The only one I've not been impressed with is Fallen Leaves. It looks like a really nice dark brown on the pad, and on the lid. It's sort of very dark brown, I would have said, on the pad. But when you stamp it, you can see there, I don't see any brown. That to me just looks like another black. Maybe slightly paler, but it just works like another black to me. The pine cone, which is the one I bought on a recommendation as being the better one, after I told people what I thought about that one. That one does look like a dark brown, but the Fallen Leaves, not so much at all. So that one I wasn't happy with in the slightest. But the others, they stamp out beautifully. They work just as well, if not better, than the original. And I really never thought I would say that there was anything better than Versified Onyx Black, but they seem to have managed it. So that's my little take on a few things to do with my ink pads today, and as I get time I'll pull out some more ink pads, because I know there are a lot of videos about ink pads, but I've got quite a few ink pads. I've been collecting them for 10-15 years. I've got quite a few ink pads that you don't get to see in videos, so I'll do another video on some of those later on. Okay folks, I'll leave my blog name in the description box below. If you have anything you want to ask, anything you want to say, there's a comment section on here, and you can always, there's a get me via an email link that's on my blog sidebar, and I'll help if I can. Okay.